friends, and welcome to Worldbuild with Us, the podcast where we create fantastical worlds with help from you, our listeners. My name is Rob Hilferty, and I'm here with my co-hosts, Johnny Law and Courtney Staples. On today's episode, we've got a new prompt from a new listener. But before we get into that, I always want to remind everyone that if you want us to build your world, you can always go to our website, worldbuildwithus.com, where you can click the link, follow some instructions, and within a reasonable amount of time, we can be building your world. Now, on to today's prompt. This one comes in from new listener Lillian, who says, I've got a space opera setting in which there has been a vast war that neither side expected to win anytime in the foreseeable future. And one of these sides find itself having won a sudden, unexpected, and complete victory over the other, and must now face the consequences of their newfound interstellar hegemony. Tenet 1. Faster than light travel does not exist. Tenet 2. This war went on for, at an absolute minimum, hundreds of years. And number 3. Neither side realized that they were at war with fellow humans until at least partway through the war. And to start us off, Johnny Law, aka John, what do you got for us? What is your tenet that we're going to be dealing with? Where are we starting?
Hey, Rob, so glad to be here.
Fuck you.
First tenet, we're doing 2, yeah?
Sure, why not?
Let's go for it. So I am going to say, all right, I'm going to take an easy one just to solve a problem with what happened that one side was caused the war, to win the war. And I will say that it is a natural and unexpected cataclysmic event, just literally wiped out the other side. And so they've been fighting this like proxy war, I suppose, from long distance. And so that's why the other side just lost, because their supply chain just stopped out of nowhere. And they're like, what? Like, what? Why aren't we getting more troops? Hello?
Oh, so you're suggesting that like there was a war going on, and then all of a sudden, due to supply line issues and like a delay in communication, that hey, there was actually a catastrophic like famine or what have you. And so for like the better part of a decade, they were like, okay, we're gonna hold up these, like we're gonna maintain the illusion of defenses, only to, like basically be starved out for 10 years or more.
Yeah. Basically, what I'm thinking is like, somehow this war was going on between these two mega civilizations, or maybe it's on the same, maybe they're both coming from Earth. That's another tenet, possibly. See what you guys say. But basically, I say it's like a proxy war was happening. They're probably using like robots and stuff to fight each other. And all of a sudden, the one side is just not funded anymore because their homeland was dug too deep and like set off a massive volcanic reactions across their empire, and just like dead, kaput, Pompeii.
I mean, alternatively, what you could do is something like they're trying to harness the energy of the sun and end up like setting off a massive solar flare or something like that, and just ends up crisping themselves.
I'm open to interpretation what happened. I would just like to say it wasn't like one side blew up the other side. Right. It was either they did something accidentally to themselves, or nature kind of came in and like just some freak thing happened that they could not stop. And that's why the war, because it's, it says it was unexpectedly won.
Yeah.
It was a act of God or gods, depending on the world.
It's funny, Rob, that you mention like a solar flare or something like that, because one of my tenets was that the losing side faced a supernova and or a black hole in their territory.
There we go.
So
oh wow.
I think that works with the cataclysm.
Tie it right in.
Yeah, I think that does in fact tie in rather well. So Courtney, why don't you flesh that out a little bit more? So it's the losing side who dealt with this massive cataclysm. Talk more about it.
Mine was literally that they just faced a supernova and or a black hole in their territory. And to expand on that, it could either be like something that was naturally going to happen, perhaps in an important system that they had where they were transferring goods or something, or it could be their home system even, which would definitely wipe them out pretty badly. Or it could also be a system where they were trying to like harness the power of the sun and somehow depleted it faster than expected, and that's what led to this disaster.
I do love the idea of like accidentally blinking out a sun in your own solar system. That's pretty fun.
Yeah. Yeah, like they
Yeah.
were trying to compete with the other side's weaponry or technology and figured out something. Maybe they were charging up some massive laser beam to zap the enemy planet or the enemy system or something, and it backfired and just destroyed their own sun.
Yeah, I'm just picturing that scene in Terminator 2 where you just see Sarah Connor get like turned into a skeleton immediately, and that's where my brain
Mhm.
is going, except
Yeah.
on, like an interplanetary scale, perhaps.
Yeah. Yeah.
My brain was just doing the Star Killer base scene from uh, the sequels in reverse.
The sequels. Yeah. Yes.
But this is where the sequels where they go back and there is no more sequels. And we can start over again. It's a happy. I think about it a lot now.
Perfect.
I believe that would be Star Wars John is referencing. Just
I don't want to get
for
sued by
anyone-
Disney. So slander and shit. I do have a Disney Plus membership, so who knows what they can do to me.
Mm, yeah.
That's true. That's true.
Banned for life now.
Yeah, you'll notice a sharp a needle in your spine. They're taking your fluid right now as we speak, John. And not
Behind you,
just your
fucker.
spinal fluid, but all of it, all of the fluids.
All
that
of
you
the
have.
fluid.
Spinal, ocular, even your
Ugh.
cum, what have
Ew.
you. It's all coming out.
I need
I
that.
figured that was implied with you, Rob. That was a
With
given.
me, yes,
Yeah.
but for new listeners, I can't sit here and
Gotta
deny
introduce
them.
them. Get
Yeah,
them off on the
exactly,
right foot. Yeah.
You finally have another female listener, and you're just gonna chase her away with your cum.
No, because listen, they know my catchphrase or my tagline, Rob Hilferty, 30% more blood, cum, and sweat. So, that's
that
just
30%
how it
each?
is.
Or just across
I
the
would say
board?
overall, I would say
Okay.
gross,
I'd say it's pretty gross.
Yeah, see, exactly. You got the pun I was going for. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Anyway,
Rob
I
and
do
just
in
became
fact
fluid bonded. What?
I do in fact have a tenet that I want to get through.
Yes.
I noticed that okay. So I had two that I wanted to go with, but for one, I think where we are right now makes sense for that I go for this one, which is faster than light travel does not exist. That's one of the tenets. And I thought that was a really interesting one because, oh man, you're like manually driving these ships for years on end, like how long would
Mhm.
it take for us just to get to Mars, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, that explains the kind of long timeline that we're dealing with. However, I thought it would be interesting if uh, it doesn't say faster than light travel has never existed, and so I wanted to put it where perhaps one of the major cataclysmic things that happened was, hey, guess what, fuckers? Your technology has suddenly ceased existing, and that leads to all sorts of horrific and terrible things to happen as well. And I think that we could probably tie it into the solar flare / sun blinking
Yeah.
out thing as well,
Mhm.
just because we can tie whatever the FTL is to the sun itself.
I see. Yeah, I like that idea. The fact that maybe they were using the energy of their sun, like charging up their ships to some ridiculous superpowered amount so that they could blast off into space faster than light travel. And then that depleted the sun and led to this horrible cataclysm. And then all these ships were just left out in space looking back at their solar
Mm.
system that had now been completely decimated.
Yeah, and like if you consider that, oh, this is the edge in combat that they had, where they were able to just move troops around very fast, and they were
Yeah.
able to be in like so many places because of this FTL travel, and because the other side didn't have it. I feel
Mhm.
like that's a huge thing that you can kind of point to and be like, yeah, no, this is what kept us viable in the war, and now that that's
Yeah.
gone, we're completely fucked. And maybe they're actually, that kind of to me implies that they're a much smaller empire as well.
Yeah,
I
I was
didn't
thinking
think
that
about.
too.
Yeah, right, because it's like, oh, we have elite forces, but there's way less of us now, and so like you really rely on having the troops in the right place at the right time, basically.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Yeah, so we're saying faster than life used to exist, but for one reason or another, it doesn't anymore.
That's correct. Yes.
Mhm.
Do you care who had access to this or no?
I think it makes the most sense that the losers had the faster than light travel based on the
Okay.
conversation that we're
Okay.
having. Yeah.
So can I move on to my second tenant?
I mean, it sounds like you've got a segue built in here, John. What do you got
Hippity
for
hop.
us?
So I'm gonna take a note out of Pierre Boulle book. Got a Planet of the Apes anyway, and say and also out of Graham Hancock's text too, and say that the one side, the losing side, was originally denizens of Earth, but they left the
Okay.
planet through faster light travel,
Oh, there we
and
go.
were not able to repeat it again to
Mm.
come back. And
Ah.
so they've been slowly making their way back. And what they come back to is an recognizable Earth that they think is overrun by aliens, but it's actually the second generation of humans.
Oh,
Interesting.
interesting.
So like
Yeah,
saying
that
like
could definitely
we
work.
destroyed the Earth, so it's all fucking polluted and shit. So we're out there in
Mhm.
our spacesuits, and then they show up. And the thing is, they think that they have more people coming this way, but they keep fucking with faster than light and trying to get faster than light working, basically wormholes working, and then that somehow destroys their civilization.
Mm.
Interesting. So it was the original Earthers who had FTL and destroyed things?
Yeah, so the original
Yeah, okay.
Earthers got FTL
Yeah.
via a wormhole, we'll say, somehow off the sun or something like that, our sun that we know, soul, whatever you want to call it.
Mhm.
And then they basically moved their whole civilization elsewhere and continued to live and thrive. But then, they try to keep exploring, but they couldn't repeat the FTL, so they just kept exploring gradually and keep spreading their empire. But then somehow in the process of trying to discover FTL, they then blew up like their new homeland.
I gotcha. I see.
So
And
basically,
now
they made it back to Earth, but it was so far advanced in generations that they didn't know that's where they came from.
yeah. Are you picturing the Earth as, like, a third faction then in this setting?
No, I'm the other faction.
Oh, you're picturing them as the enemy. I gotcha.
Yeah, but you don't. And then, like as a reader or playing the game or whatever, I guess we're going to be picking up after all this happened, though.
Mhm.
But you wouldn't know that that's actually where they came from, and that was part of like the reveal.
Okay,
And
I
that's the
see.
whole thing. Like, they won't make a monkey out of me. Musical number.
Yeah. From chimpanzee to chimpanzee. I got you.
Hate
Yeah.
every ape I see. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. I've got where you're going on there, John, but I feel like, okay, so you're most concerned about it being original Earth, right? That's what you're mostly interested in.
It doesn't have to be Earth, but they're basically they came. The concept of like that pyramids and shit were built by previous civilization that
Yeah.
like then went into space because the cataclysm was coming. Something like that happened, and
Right.
then they got stuck there and just developed there. But they had like all this advanced technology, so they kept, they were able to progress exponentially and eventually
Right.
make their way back here. And they came back to a relatively developed planet, but they didn't recognize it as their own anymore for one reason or another.
Right.
Or that could, I'm a little bit. The other people definitely didn't know that they were fighting their predecessors though,
Yeah.
until
Right.
halfway through the war, like you said.
I can definitely work with all of that. That all sounds very well and good. When it comes to the kind of previous like lore and canon that we're creating here, so which side? So that would make the original Earthlings then the losers of this intergalactic
Yes.
war. Then yes.
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that so we can like figure out where we are in all of that.
I'm backing up on all of our other tenets before this, so that
Right.
you're faster than life used to exist, and it was possessed by the eventual losers, and they were in my
Right.
tenet. Now I'm saying that they were the original
Yeah.
progenitors of their
Thematically-
future enemy.
Yeah, thematically, I think that makes a lot of sense as well, because what we're like, they're a smaller group because they're, effectively like a pure, well, if we're talking about like faster than light travel, then oh my god, am I becoming Daniel this episode?
Mm.
I'm thinking about like how they're perceiving time, right? Like if they're traveling through faster than light speed, then the entire world around them is going to be traveling at a faster speed, right? So that would allow for this immense kind of time skip in this kind of thousands of years of evolution to happen on, proto Earth, our Earth, and then genetically it would seem as though that those progenitors have basically kept what they were, except now what they left behind is like advanced thousands of years while they were traveling,
Well,
basically, right?
technically too, if they're traveling through a wormhole, then they could both travel through space and time, so they could theoretically go back in the past of the galaxy, universe, whatever. So it could buy them even more time to develop and spread and make their way, and they keep trying to chase that fucking dragon and get that faster faster than light back, and then eventually that's when they fuck it up and massive black hole themselves.
Yeah. Interesting.
Gotcha.
Now I'm picturing, this is obviously really dumb and makes no sense scientifically, but I'm picturing like
It's space opera, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's fair. That's true.
Yeah.
That's a good point. I'm picturing our sun. You were talking about like them using a wormhole. Like there's literally like a hole in the sun now. Like it's
Ooh.
donut shaped now.
Ooh,
I
of
love
course.
that so much, Courtney.
And you like
It's-
actually
it's
just
so
drive your
dumb.
spaceship through it.
Yeah, I love that actually. I
Okay.
love the idea that maybe it's not even just that there's a big hole in it, but there's like a barrier built around it. So it's like this is like the portal, or like this is the space highway, or a giant sun
Yeah.
sphincter, if you will, that is like like rocketing people through time and space at faster than light travel. And then when that inevitably collapses in on itself because you can't keep a hole in the fucking sun, then yeah, of course, that's when the big cataclysm happens.
Well,
That one
that
doesn't
is still
last.
in place in the
Oh,
sun,
oh,
but
oh,
it's
yeah.
when they tried to do that with another sun, or like maybe they were successful for a little while, but they were using it too much and dug too greedily and too deep, etc.
Yeah.
And then that annihilated them. But the actual solar system, our solar system sun still has it, but maybe the people there never figured out how to harness that power.
I could take it one further and say, what if they were actually, using our solar system as a model, what if they actually started on Mars, and because they did, and like Earth was a colony of theirs that they were working, like it's a scientific colony, but because they fucked with the sun, it actually like shrunk back, like decreased in size, and so ruined their former planet, but allowed this new planet to be in like the perfect biome to,
Oh, sure.
I
Yeah,
don't know. I just throwing that out there.
So it's basically
And
like
then monkeys, lots of monkeys.
it's basically like ancient aliens,
Yeah.
and the pyramids were actually the thing that opened the wormhole in the sun, and so
I
on.
mean, they're really just a marker for future civilizations to show that the age of Aquarius that they were in when the cataclysm happened. And I mean, I could go on for hours. But
please
So
continue.
my question, I have two questions here, right? Number one, how do reptilians fit into all this? And number two, where do the tall whites fit into this? Because this is what I want to know. These are the questions that I have. Not to mention the Nephilim, Courtney. I mean, come on.
Yeah, that's true. That's important stuff. Unfortunately, that my tenet does not address, but I feel like we could probably tie it in sort of.
Well, what do you got for us then? What's your second tenet?
Yeah, my second one is that one side of the war continued to lie to its people about the true nature of the enemy, like that they were actually fighting other humans until the very end, or maybe they're still lying about it.
Hot damn, Courtney. That actually works really well with my second tenet.
what?
Yeah. My second tenet was surrounding, because the prompt itself reads that like it sets the timeline in, okay, we have to deal with the aftermath and the consequences of new star interstellar hegemony, right? Like, so that to me implies that like our setting and focus is right the fuck now, after all of this interstellar war stuff has happened. And I'm like, okay, what to me is really interesting about that is, you're thinking hundreds of years of war. Think about what a government would look like if it was stuck under constant war, or at least threat of war, right? I would imagine that there is this hyper
Oh,
nationalistic
yeah,
kind of
exactly.
like, yeah, like basically pseudo fascist like democracy that exists and is trying to like maintain order as best it can. And so what is the thing that they have to deal with now? Well, you don't have an enemy to fight. So it's now you now recognize, oh wait, our government is actually horrifically corrupt, and now we have to turn our attention into fascistic infighting. And so all of a sudden, not having that enemy to fight is suddenly creating schisms and potential civil wars. And I think that if we integrate that into what you were saying, Courtney, where it's
Mhm.
like, hey, we're actually still fighting that war, and it's like
Yeah.
slowly but surely the cracks at the edge of this intergalactic empire are starting to crumble. And like as news gets closer and closer to homeworld that the war is over, there's actually like this massive information and secretive like espionage war preventing that information to get back to homeworld, just so
Er
they can maintain that kind of power.
I had also with mine, it was mainly, like, about the nature of the enemy that was in question, which I mean, that was also my thought of, like, this fascist nationalist kind of, appeal to, like, fighting the other, fighting the thing that has nothing in common with us, except they do actually have a lot in common with us. They are people, and, like, so I think that I would assume probably the winning side then is continuing to carry on that lie of like, no, they're not human beings. They're separate,
Mm.
like alien forms. We have nothing in common with them. Pay no mind to any images you might see. It's all conspiracies and so on.
Oh, yeah, and then I mean that compounds with the kind of thing that I was talking about, where not only is the truth that, oh, the war is over, but the truth is we've been fighting humans the whole time. So now that
Yeah.
information war is even more important, even more vital, because it's also striking at a lie that the government has been telling us the entire time, right? I think that I think that right now we've got peanut butter and chocolate right now with our two
Mm,
tenants building together.
Let's
mhm,
get some
mhm.
banana in there. What the
John's always good for laying down some banana. What do you got for us, buddy?
hell yeah, genetics. So what is one so only one side was lying or both sides was lying? Both sides were lying.
I
In
say
mine,
one side makes more sense.
yeah.
Okay.
In my like, in the prompt itself, it sounds like they didn't figure out that they were just fighting other humans until partway through, but
Yeah.
in my tenet, it's like one side, the winning side most likely is the one that's just lying completely about the nature of the enemy now.
Okay, so the if we're going with what I said before that the people of Earth, quote unquote, they found out that these are actually their ancestors of
Yeah.
sort, and they continued to lie to hold down. Like they maybe they found out when they started getting an upper hand, or they were like they had
Yeah.
a couple of victories, and they're like,
Or
well,
like,
fuck,
yeah, they could have, I don't know, one of you had talked about kind of a proxy war using robots,
yeah,
and maybe at some point, like the the Earth side, captured a ship or a space station from the other side and actually went on there and was like, "Oh shit, these are these are people. Like they look kind of a little
yeah,
different than us because it's been a very long time, but they're people. Shit.
okay.
Now we gotta go like lie completely to our populace about this."
So I do like the concept of now thinking our hero is actually from the losing side.
I didn't know we had a hero. Where did the hero come from?
It's a space opera. You gotta have a hero.
Mm.
It's
I mean, not
literally
necessarily.
literally the definition of the thing. You gotta have a hero for a space opera. You gotta have a hero, and you don't explain how shit works. That's like the two key points.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. John, you hate anime as much as Daniel does, right?
Yep.
Okay, great.
I
I'm going to
mean,
talk about an anime right now.
okay, go for it.
It is phenomenal. It is one of the few space operas that I've actually ever watched and like. It's called The Legend of Galactic Heroes. It's a very old anime, but it's really fucking good and basically has an intergalactic war between these two factions. One is a benevolent dictatorship, and the other is a corrupt fascistic democracy. And it, like, the way that it zooms in and out to, like, hey, this is what's happening on the grand scale. Hey, this is how those decisions are affecting individual planets and individual people on those planets. And the way that it kind of like zooms in and out repeatedly to give you an entire like view upon what war does is really fucking good. And I would strongly recommend that you watch it if you can listen to me right now. Unless you're Daniel or John, but still.
I will interject, just looking at the trailer really quick. This is the era of anime that I actually liked. Like that's I was like back in Akira, Vampire Hunter D, like that shit. I like that, and then it just went too far into like tropes nonstop, and then like that became, I don't know. And then the fans just got
okay.
really
So I see you in like the pendulum, right? Because there's the anime pendulum where it's swinging back and forth. We're like, oh, there's too many tropes. And then there's the anti-trope pendulum where it's like, well, we're gonna buck all those against, and you know, like that.
Like, I'm sure One Piece is great. I just don't care to watch it. Like,
listen, I'm sure I know that One Piece has great world building, and I know that the politics are really interesting. I just have no desire to go through that long of a series where it's over 1,000 episodes now.
I was gonna say, isn't it like 1,000+ episodes?
Yeah.
Like, where do you even start? Like, what? How?
Well, you usually start at episode 1, but but what the problem is, and Courtney, this would break your brain in particular. There are like recommended watching lists because there's so much filler, where it's just like, hey, you really only need to watch this, this, and this, you know? And I know that you would not be able to do that, Courtney, because your brain would not let you, but it does exist for people out there.
Honestly, with a series that long, I would consider it, but I also just wouldn't watch it. So
Rob, what was your tenet again?
The like
it's now anime. That was my tenet.
Yeah.
All anime now. No, but it was wait, sorry, Courtney, what were you gonna say? Go ahead.
Oh, you can talk about your own tenet. Please.
Okay. No, my tenet was the winning side now has to effectively deal with the schisms that are happening within, because you know, after decades, if not centuries of war, they're now able to be like, oh wait, our government is horrendously corrupt. And so now a lot of like infighting is happening because of that. Also hyper nationalistic, et cetera, et cetera. And there's like that, to kind of combine it with what Courtney was saying earlier, this idea that there's an information campaign that's happening as well, that's also in the forefront of what's going on.
That's happening on the winning side, which I was insinuating could be the enemy. But that's obviously not a tenet, so that's up in the air.
Correct. Well, it's the winning side who are the mutant humans, basically. Yes. Not the progenitor races.
No, not the one that's not the returners.
Exactly. Or not the returners. The
prodigal race.
Yeah, exactly.
I was thinking too that the battle could have not happened on quote unquote Earth, but like on the Mars-like planet, like they're actually trying to get back to their home planet. But meanwhile, the follow-up, the winners, they had established like multiple science colonies and stuff like that in their attempt to expand. And that's why it was like wasn't realized that they were actually from the same original bit, because it wasn't like they're both homelands.
Well, I was thinking that like the intergalactic thing would kind of like, because I'm not thinking that this is within the solar system. I'm thinking that this is multiple solar systems that we're dealing with. And it would also explain the gap where all of a sudden, you know, like while the new earthers are, you know, like rolling in and just basically stomping or easily taking all of the territory of the progenitors or the returners, then it's like, hey, why is this so easy? What, like, are we being baited into a trap? What's going on?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't think it was easy. I think that the progenitors, because they were of higher technology, they've been around longer, that there were fewer people, but they were like beating the shit out of the people who are defending their land. And
Yeah.
then it wasn't until
Yeah.
midway through they realized, oh shit, they're not actually they're defending their own land. They're not trying to keep us from our former land. But
I
then it
see
was
what
too
you mean.
late. And then they realized the Progener's like, oh shit, there's no more communication from home. Like our
Yeah.
civilization's lost, and now
Okay.
they're just spread out throughout the galaxy as these little mini things. But then
I gotcha.
they have to become subjects to
Yeah.
the
I see what you're saying, John. We're saying the same thing. I think. I
yeah,
think you're just adding an additional layer of
yeah.
context to it, which I appreciate. Yeah. So if that's the case, do we have any other questions or anything else that we want to explore before we go into our recap?
Yeah, unless something comes up in the recap, I think I have a pretty solid thought of what could happen with this.
Yeah, I feel like there's stuff that I'm unsure about still, but I think that'll just come out as we flesh out the setting more.
And explore the twist a little bit. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's fair.
exactly.
Well, John, you started us off this time. What was your first tenet? Explain to us, and are you feeling satisfied with it?
I'm pretty good with it. I think mine was that the one side was destroyed by a cataclysmic event on their home turf. We decided that that's well, I won't go into more detail because that's what this later tenet is.
Yeah, and my first one conveniently lined up with that was that the losing side faced a supernova / black hole in their territory, and we went into basically they were trying to harness technology, and it backfired unfortunately and wiped out a lot of their stuff.
And left them with a donut-shaped sun. Yeah.
Well, the donut-shaped sun is our sun still.
Right. The
Right.
winter's
That's
sun.
still
Oh,
yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But they
Gotcha.
tried to do that with another sun, and maybe it worked for like a good chunk of the war, and then blew up, and
They
then
made the donut too big.
yeah.
And then
Yeah, I
just
mean, it
wrapped
worked
in
for
such-
hundreds of years, right? So
Mhm.
makes sense. Yeah. Okay. And my first tenet was a little cheeky. Again, I feel like I'm playing Daniel's role today, because I was like, well, the tenet, it's in the spirit of the tenet, kind of, but it's also like twisting it, where it's not that faster than light travel has never existed. It's just that it used to exist and it has ceased to exist now. Hence, faster than light travel does not exist. And I feel like I integrated that well within the previous tenets, and I'm feeling pretty good about that. The idea that this progenitor race was once able to utilize FTL in war in order to make sure that, hey, we're better than you, or at least as good as you, despite having fewer numbers. Feeling very good about how that all worked out. So, John, we're back to you. What was your second tenet?
It was Earth all along.
You animals! You blew it up, or at least
God
turned it into a
damn you.
donut sun. Yeah.
Yeah, is that the losing side were actually originally from the same at least solar system, if not same planet, as the people they were fighting against, and that they had just traveled away through the previous tenets faster than light used to exist, and they've been slowly making their way back over the millennia, and then they got into this war with the new owners, so to speak.
Yeah, I do like that. I mean, like, we haven't really actually talked about this, but in my head, it's now very much they are Planet of the Apes. They're just monkeys, apes, and gorillas, and orangutans, and all that stuff. Dr. Zayas is in there. Troy McClure's in there. That's what's happening.
Oh,
yeah.
Phil Hartman always has to come up.
I know.
I
rest
get
in peace.
sad.
Yeah. Courtney, you're the perfect person to get us out of feeling sad. So what is
that's what I'm best at, for sure.
Courtney, what was your second tenet? How are you feeling about it?
My second one was that one side of the war, the winning side, continued to lie to its own people about the nature of who they're fighting, that it was, related humans, basically, until the very end, or maybe they're still lying about that. And paired with your tenet, Rob, we decided that they are in fact still lying, and that it's this like sort of a fascistic mindset. They're trying to just keep a hold on things, and trying to keep the war machine going, even though there is no war anymore. by acting like, in part, the enemies were in fact really weird, bizarre aliens that we have no relation to.
Yeah, that does in fact dovetail into my second tenet, which is the corrupt government is being exposed now that the war is over, and the information campaign or the war that's happening now is within its own empire to keep that information, for both pieces of information: one, that the war is over, and two, that it was actually progenitors the entire time. Like, I feel like those are both things that could easily crumble the empire, or at least snap it, or shatter it into different pieces. I think that to me is a really interesting way that we can kind of explore the now of the setting. So I'm happy with my second tenet as well. Well, I think with all of that done and out the way, the recap process is over. I think it's time that we roll our twist. And our twist this time is... Oh, that was a good sound. Our twist this time is an evil cabal / secret organization is behind it all. So, Courtney...
Reptilians.
God damn it, Courtney. I love the way that you think. Oh, man. Yeah. Courtney, say more about that. What do you got for us?
Honestly, I'm not sure. That was just the first thing that popped in my mind. So we could go in the kind of ridiculous route of the Earth is actually secretly controlled by reptilians, and they're the reason why this war is continuing to go on, and they want to, I don't know, continue to propagate the Earth and to continue global warming so they can eventually come to the surface, whatever the logic is there. Or we could go in a more realistic, conspiratorial, in a realistic way kind of sense of like there is a secret council that maybe part of the winning or part of the losing side was also on, and they were sort of all configuring the war to go this way for some reason or another.
Maybe the losing side was actually fleeing the reptilian overlords. And then when they came back, that's who they thought they were fighting.
Oh,
But it was
man,
like
that
humans that were
justifies
left
so
behind that
much.
were
Yes.
now the strings were being pulled by the reptilian overlords who live
Yes.
underground and are reverse cold-blooded. They're hot-blooded.
No, they're
Well,
cold.
no, they're still
they're
cold-blooded.
cold-blooded,
Okay.
John. They need
'Cause
to be
they-
cold-blooded because they need the heat of the sun.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, that's I was saying they live underground because they're hot-blooded.
Well, it could also be
That-
like a geothermal thing. Like they've got a whole setup underneath the
Okay.
Earth crust where they're getting the steam vents and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What I like about that is I like that we're escaping from reptilian overlords. I love that a lot, actually. It
Yeah,
also
that's
totally
really good.
justifies them being like, holy shit, and hold on. If we go a bit further with the conspiracy and just say that they're also shape-shifting lizard people,
Mhm.
like, one, that is steeped in conspiracy and accurate and true and real. But also it would explain why they're like, don't trust those things. They're not actually human. They just look human, right? They're actually reptilians. And that would justify their kind of that mixed in with, long-range weaponry and whatnot. That would justify, okay, if they're not, like lizard people, then they're at least under the thrall of the lizard people. But in
Mhm.
actuality, like maybe the lizard people kind of went dormant and allowed this new humanity to propagate, but they look different because they're potentially spliced with more. I don't know. There's something to this that is interesting and good here. That's what I'm trying to get at.
We don't want to tread too much on the V franchise, So
Why?
once again, I'd like to put forward my motion that they are hot-blooded, and I will give you one more reason why. So at the very end of the first movie, when it's revealed, like the little snake tongue flickers out, and like they're mentioned like offhand, these hot-blooded lizards. But then as it cuts to black in the credit, Foreigner's hot-blooded comes on, and that's what plays you out.
Dang.
And you could
Hold on,
argue
wait.
that Cold-Blooded by Rick James could play, but it's just not the same feeling. It's not hot-blooded. Can't you see? Like, can you imagine? Like, I see like the credits.
Wait.
Up, like part 2.
But
May
what if it's
2026.
okay? I see that, and I counter with, "She's as cold as ice," and then you could still have a cold-blooded villain that way.
Well, no, but that would be the end of part 2 when we meet the new hero, which is the cold-blooded lizard people that are actually good. And that's it. She like, her eyes like flicker blue.
So there's a sub-faction within the lizard people that are actually
That's for another
people.
prompt though. We got to save that. That's it.
Jesus fucking
At
Christ.
least let me get the
stupid.
website registered and then we'll go from there.
Yeah. Also, because I sang that part, this entire episode is now not able to go up on YouTube, unfortunately.
Yeah. Just gotta blow it out.
Sorry. Yeah.
Just put some non
some garbling, some
Oh
voice.
no, it's
Yeah.
only like what 15 plus seconds or something.
No, but I'm saying that I did such a good job that they're going to, yeah,
It was
exactly.
exact. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yep. Now you're on the trolley, Courtney. I'm
Yeah.
glad that you got there. Yeah.
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 As YouTube studios have for hot-blooded music.
Yeah. Can you get a MIDI version of Hot Blooded, perhaps? Okay. We're going off the rails here. Because this prompt has actually been very fun and interesting.
Mhm.
That was great.
Yeah. I love it.
So let's talk a little bit more about that. I do like the idea that so let me ask you this, right? What does the average citizen in this world see? Right? Like, because I think that one of the interesting things that we can kind of do here is zoom in and then zoom out. Kind of like, okay, the average person doesn't see the information campaign, but like the am I wrong in trying to pursue this? I think
No. I agree, and I think that
Mhm.
on the winning side, the average person sees that it's basically just picture our world now, but like
Yeah.
a little bit more technologically advanced. So it's just like that it's just people live life and they think there's this enemy, and that they try to build space walls, keep them out, whatever.
Mhm.
But I think what I'm more curious about is what where do you think our central character what side should our central character be on? I personally think it should be on the losing side, and they're trying to find a way to integrate with this world that hates them, but also unravel the mystery that was actually happening.
Yeah, I was going to say that I'm interested in like finding people who want to unravel this conspiracy and expose all this stuff that's going on. Whether that mean like like getting someone to like homeworld, basically, that to me is a really interesting thing, because you can like, even though this is a very information based campaign, what that kind of leads to is, hey, we got to run blockades and stuff like that, and we've got to smuggle, and we've got to sneak, and all of that stuff is kind of interesting to me. So I think that if we wanted to focus in on a particular central narrative, I think that to me is where I would start, is getting to the heart of the empire, aka homeworld, and having information kind of be disseminated from there.
Yeah, I am thinking about this in terms of Daniel's OSR Plus system, osrplus.com. It's free to check out. Tell all your friends. It's a great system.
Cutting all of that out. No free
See us at PAX.
God damn it.
Yeah, we'll be at PAX Unplugged. The thinking about how he runs setting or like campaigns with archetypes that you can pick from. Like each person in the party is a different archetype and they have a special ability. I could totally see like like the journalist and the smuggler and the conspiracy theorist and stuff like that as archetypes for this sort of campaign.
Oh, I really like that.
Yeah.
Not to mention, you can always have the lizard person as one of the group members as well,
as a secret one.
Yeah, or one of my favorite things to do is just to hand that out mid campaign and be like, hey, guess what? You've been a lizard person this entire time. Kind of like what they did with Battlestar Galactica.
But yeah, in terms of like that way each character has their own sort of role that they can lean into in the story, and it makes it different than if we were all to just play like generic soldiers or fighters or something. You've got
Mhm.
this big variety of people, and you would be able to come up with really interesting ways of how like their backstory is connected to,
Mm,
especially if you've got people from both sides of the war in there.
mhm. Yeah, I was just thinking about this too. This is like slightly related to what you're talking about, Courtney. But I'm also thinking that because of how slow things post the collapse of faster than light travel like happens, like there are probably squadrons of troops out there from the progenitors who are like, we haven't lost the war. What are you talking about?
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
just propaganda, right? And it's like they're like it's kind of like the Japanese soldiers post World War II. Like there was that one guy who hid out and like killed people until the 1970s. Do you know about that?
yeah. I've heard of that
Yeah,
on
yeah.
some island. Yeah,
Yes, exactly
yeah,
right. And I feel like that's distinctly possible based on what we're kind of dealing with here. Although maybe to a less zealous extent, so to speak.
yeah, yeah.
I feel like that could be like a mid boss in some way, you know, like or like that's like another interesting character. Actually, you can even play that where it's like, oh, coming to terms with the fall of your own empire that happened like
Y-
years afterwards or something like that. There's some interesting stuff that you can deal with there. Yeah.
Right, like the guerrilla fighter or the prisoner of war as other
Hmm. Hmm.
archetypes.
Ooh, those are both. Ooh,
Mhm.
actually, a prisoner of war archetype who similarly does not understand that the war is over. You know,
Yeah,
that to me could be really interesting as well. I
See,
think.
I
Oh
think that
yeah,
would be my hero, would be the prisoner of war.
mhm.
there you go. Yeah.
And that's all about them trying to convince people that they're not really the enemy and the enemy is within.
Hmm.
That is
Oh,
cool, yeah.
yeah. They were like an iconoclast from the get go, right? Like because they were privy to information that others weren't, you know, like aware of. Yeah, that works remarkably well.
Yeah, like they could have been an intelligence officer or even like a historian kind of figure who has all
Mm,
this
yeah.
background about where they came from and why they left the earth, and it had to do with those damn reptilians, those hot-blooded reptilians.
Hot-blooded! Yeah, no,
Can't
I
you
think
see? See? Sold it.
all right. On that note, I feel like that's a great place for us to stop and a
Yes.
great place for you guys to pick up if you wanted to run this, write this, do whatever you want. Remember that if you want us to build your world, you can always go to our website, worldbuildwithus.com, where you can click the link, follow some instructions, and within a reasonable amount of time, we can be building your world. If you want to follow us on social media, we're over on Twitter and YouTube, where you can subscribe, like, etc., and do all that good stuff. Or if you want to talk to us more directly, you can go to our Discord with a link for that in the description. Or if you're feeling particularly generous, just want to say thank you for all the years of podcasting, you can go ahead and click a link for our Patreon with a link for that in the description. That's going to do it for this episode of World Build with Us. Remember that we love you very much. We're going to get through this together. Until